Welcome back to Phyto Revival, the podcast, where wisdom is always steeping, laughter is our favorite medicine, and our lived experiences are what root us in our humanity. And I'm your host, Dezarae Haley. Today, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something, well, because most of us don't fully understand it, and it tends to spark extreme fear the moment it hits a news headline, and this is zoonotic viruses. Before we dive in, I want to remind you that everything shared here is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure. Always work with a qualified practitioner when making health decisions. Now, you might be asking yourself, what the heck is a zoonotic virus? Well, the word zoonotic refers to diseases or infections. This includes viruses that can be transmitted naturally between vertebrate animals and humans. And yes, this does go both ways. We can get infections from animals, and animals can get infections from us. Some well-known zoonotic viruses include rabies, hantavirus, Ebola, SARS, Zika virus, yellow fever, the West Nile virus, and one that has been in the recent headlines is the Nipah virus. And of course, there's one zoonotic virus that we are all way familiar with if you lived through the 2020 pandemic, and that is COVID-19. So, I want to ground this just a little bit. I want to let you know that viruses do not want to kill us, they just want to use us. A virus cannot reproduce on its own. It isn't alive the way bacteria or human cells are alive. It has no metabolism and no independent reproduction. It survives by entering a host cell, hijacking the cell's machinery, and making copies of itself. So, its goal is pretty simple: to enter a host, replicate itself, and spread itself. Viruses carry genetic material, either RNA or DNA, and they rely on our cellular systems to read that code and build viral proteins. Essentially, they use our cells to read their genetic instructions and make more virus parts for them. So let's walk through this infection cycle for a moment, because the more you understand about this process, it'll help replace fear with awareness. So, step one, the virus needs to enter a host. The virus has to find a way in. This can happen through respiratory droplets, bodily fluids, contaminated food or water, direct contact, or through a vector. And if you don't know what a vector is a carrier that transmits a pathogen between hosts, sometimes passively and sometimes as part of the pathogen's life cycle. Like, for instance, think about the mosquitoes transmitting malaria parasites. Step 2, cellular invasion. So once it's inside the body, the virus seeks out specific cells, and it binds to the receptors and on the cell's membrane, almost like a key fitting into a lock, and then it crosses over into the cell. Step number 3, genetic takeover. Once inside the cell, the virus releases its genetic material. Think of your cell like a factory, and the virus breaks in, removes management, and reprograms the workers to start reproducing virus copies instead of healthy cell parts. Step number 4 is the assembly. New viral particles begin forming, and these complete infectious units are called virions, the fully assembled virus capable of infecting a new cell. A virion is a complete virus particle outside of a cell. Once it enters a cell and begins to replicate, we simply refer to it as the virus infection cycle. And then, lastly, step 5 is the release. The new virions exit the host cells in one of two ways: either cell lysis, which causes the cell to burst open, or budding or shedding. The virus exits without immediately killing the cell. Once released, they infect neighboring cells, and the cycle then continues. And when we're talking about zoonotic viruses, this cycle isn't just happening inside humans, it's happening inside the animals too. bats, rodents, primates, birds, long before humans ever entered the picture. So here is where the real question comes in. How do these viruses jump species? Well, when a virus jumps, we call it a spillover. So roughly 75% of emerging infectious diseases are zoonotic. Many animals function as reservoir hosts. The word reservoir literally means storage. So a reservoir host is like a storage tank for a virus, keeping it circulating in nature even when humans aren't involved. And spillover happens when ecological barriers break. When we disturb ecosystems, microbes move. So what tends to drive these spillovers? Well, number one is deforestation. So when we are clearing the forests, wildlife lose their habitat and they start to move closer to where humans are at, roosting in barns, feeding on crops, nesting near homes. We didn't eliminate these viruses, we relocated them closer to us. And the wildlife trade. Animals that would never interact in nature are caged together, stressed and immunocompromised, increasing viral shedding and cross-species exchange. Wildlife trade turns isolated viruses into international travelers. Wet market. Live and slaughtered animals share tight quarters. Blood, fluids, and tissues mix across species, increasing exposure risk. Not all wet markets are dangerous. The risk rises with wild animals and poor sanitation. Next would be factory farming. Dense animal populations amplify viral spread and mutation while workers form a transmission bridge to humans. And climate change. Warming temperatures expand mosquito, tick, and rodent ranges, introducing pathogens to new populations. Climate change is redrawing the viral map. Human encroachment. As we are expanding cities, farms, and infrastructures to wild spaces, we increase direct contact with reservoir hosts. Spillover isn't random, it's ecological pressure. And lastly, mixing vessels. Some species, especially important because they can host both human-adapted and animal-adapted viruses. And when one of these animals get infected by both human and animal viruses at the same time, it could lead to reassortment, recombination, or accelerated mutation. This process alone is one of the main engines behind zoonotic emergencies and pandemics. Animals most likely to catch a human virus would be mammals, social species, species in close contact with humans, and species with similar receptor biology. Birds are far less commonly infected with human viruses compared to the other mammals. If we mapped animals on what we'd call a zoonotic interface spectrum, from high-risk viral exchange to the lowest, it would look something like this. From the highest spillover and mutation risk to the lowest natural spillover risk when talking in forms of human contact. Number one would be factory livestock. So think of your fur farms, your pigs, poultry. Number two, your companion pets, your ferrets, your dogs, your cats. Number three, farm hooved animals, horses, goats, cattle. Number four, wildlife that lives around us. So think of the deer, the raccoons, possums, bats. Number five, zoo species, the great apes, the big cats. And lastly, lab animals. Lab animals are what we call a controlled interface. That refers to a managed and regulated point of interaction between humans and animals, where there are measures in place to make sure that risk is very low. The closer animals live to us, the more they share our air, our viruses, and our evolutionary pressures. But the real danger isn't always our pets. It's the high-density systems where viruses get thousands of chances to evolve at once. Let's talk about some of the viruses that have been in the headlines more recently. And we are going to start off with the famous COVID 19. COVID 19 is a coronavirus related to the strains that can cause the common cold, but is far more aggressive. Think of your cells like houses, and viruses, like burglars, are looking for the right key. COVID has spike proteins that act like keys, fitting into locks on your cells. ACE2 receptors. These locks exist in your lungs, your heart, kidneys, gut, and blood vessels. So once inside, it's not just a lung issue, it can affect the whole body. The virus spreads mainly through the air, through coughing, sneezing, talking, and even breathing in close quarters. But people feel sick for two main reasons. Number one, direct cell damage from the viral replication. Or number two, immune overreaction. Sometimes the immune system panics and overfires, what we call a cytokine storm. Essentially, it's friendly fire. Instead of just attacking the virus, inflammation damages lung tissue, blood vessels, organs. So while COVID starts as a respiratory virus, it can become a whole body disease. Severe complications can include fluid filling the lungs, micro blood clots, heart strain, brain fog, and long-term inflammation, which is also called long COVID. Now next, I want to talk about the Nipah virus, because recently there's been fear circulating online, especially on social media, about the Nipah virus. As of early 2026, limited regional cases were reported in parts of India with monitoring of contacts and no widespread outbreak. Nipah has a fatality rate ranging from about 40 to 75%, depending on the outbreak and healthcare access. But context matters. Nipah is far less contagious than COVID. It is carried naturally by fruit bats, which act as reservoir hosts without becoming sick themselves. Spillover typically occurs through food or animal contact, such as eating fruit, partially eaten by bats, drinking raw date palm sap, contaminated with bat saliva or urine, contact with infected pigs, close contact with infected humans. COVID is lung heavy, but Nipah is more brain and blood vessel focused. It attacks the lining of the blood vessels and the nervous system. Think of your blood vessels like highways, and Nipah damages those highways, causing leakage and swelling. When it reaches the brain, it can cause brain inflammation. Symptoms can include severe headaches, confusion, disorientation, seizures, and even a coma. Some patients also develop respiratory distress. COVID spreads fast, but killed a smaller percentage. Nipah spreads slower, but kills a much higher percentage. The global concern is if this virus ever became both highly transmissible and highly lethal. When we understand the mechanics, viruses stop feeling mysterious and they start feeling biological. So, what can you do? So, according to the CDC on your personal prevention, number one is hand hygiene. Wash your hands, people. Avoid wildlife handling. Cook animal products thoroughly. Wash your fruits. Avoid raw date palm sap in endemic regions. Masking during outbreaks. Vaccinations when available. And I know that there is a lot of controversy when it comes to vaccinations. My advice is to do your homework and work with a qualified practitioner and make an informed decision based on your health status and risk factors. From an herbal support perspective, herbs do not replace antivirals or medical care in severe illnesses. Their role is to support the body systems that are under attack. We would look at herbs that would help with immune modulation, inflammation control, tissue protection, and recovery support. At early onset or exposure, herbs like elderberry, astragalus, reishi, and garlic are commonly used for immune support. For respiratory viruses like COVID, influenza, RSV, and SARS, consider using lung supportive herbs such as mullein, licorice root, elecampane, thyme, and horehound. Because COVID also affects blood vessels, herbs like hawthorn, ginkgo, and turmeric may support circulation and inflammatory balance. And just as a side note, if you're using turmeric and you do not have piperine or black pepper with it, your body is not absorbing it very well at all. Just add a little tiny bit of black pepper to it, and it'll increase your body's absorption by 2,000%. Anyways, for neurological viruses like Nipah, rabies, and West Nile, herbs that support neuroinflammation and nervous system resilience include gotu kola, skullcap, lemon balm, milky oats, and reishi. And for hemorrhagic viruses, focus on vascular integrity with herbs like yarrow, Japanese knotweed, holy basil, rosehips, and nettle. For gastrointestinal viruses, look at ginger, peppermint, chamomile, slippery elm, and fennel. But here is a key reminder. We match herbs to the damage viruses cause, not the virus itself, because viruses differ, but inflammation, tissue damage, and immune strain follow patterns. Please consult with a qualified professional if you are on any long-term medications or have any diseases. I know this episode was a little bit longer than usual, but I hope it gave you a deeper understanding on how viruses function and how zoonotic spillover happens. Knowledge reduces fear. And if you're enjoying this content, please share it with someone who would benefit from this conversation, and feel free to ask questions. I am so grateful you spent the time with me today. And until next time, remember, sometimes even a flower that requires full sun finds itself growing in the shade. Be mindful of the environment that you're rooted in, and make sure you have what you need to truly thrive.